Okay, good morning, guys. Excuse me. Just let me know if I'm coming through clear, apart from the croaky voice. All should be good. G'day, Bobby. How are you, mate? What are we doing here? Okay, Mono Territory and Jason. How are you, guys? Now, we'll get stuck into it. Short but sweet is the idea for today. If I can hold my tongue a bit, don't mind the old yabbering on. Now, we're just watching, this is the Dow Mini. So you can see it's just come off a bit after the close. So we know what happened last night. Markets basically took a breather. So I think the bulls will be trying to consolidate this level, see if they can punch back up again. And you've got the major trend was up, rolled over. We got that big sell off after a bit of a retest, and then big sell off here. Then it's a bit of a flush out like we were talking about previously. A while ago, it was a bit of a setup. I think this sort of short into here was a bit of a setup before we jammed back up again. And it got ahead of itself, probably well ahead of the MAs, which you probably expect. Now we're sitting on top of this longer term. This is a 150 MA, and it's gradually edging higher. It doesn't mean that this can't roll over a bit like this. If we start to find some weakness, at the moment, it's just keeping an eye on the action. At the moment, you can see that gradually pushing down to the previous lows from yesterday and overnight. Had that big flush out, bounce back, and then we hold an inside level, which you can see roughly where it is at the moment. And that's from previously as well. So that was that inside level, punched through that, finished above, and we've pushed back into the zone before bouncing higher. Now, this longer term, maybe we're looking at something like that. It's a bit of a longer term play, a bit of a flush and then bounce and flush and bounce before we take off again if the bulls get their way. Otherwise, it is looking a tad heavy. So what I'd be looking for here is that, flush down, a pullback. So your first sort of major correction or major pullback to see if it can stick and then hold. So it'd be something more like, along the lines like this, re-holding that level again and then a big sell-off. And that's where you'd expect that big flush down. Look, it could get out of hand, which a lot of people are expecting. Or it could just be a bigger flush to retest, towards these lows and find an inside bid, down here. But at the moment, you would expect if that's the case, it's going to flush right down. You might find there's a few levels in play that could find a bit of a bid where it could halt or fall short and not give us the big sell-off that everyone's expecting. It's a big spike in volatility too is what we're looking for. Now that's the Dow. Let's just look at, I don't really need to look at intraday, look at too much what happened overnight. This is the major levels. This is, the S&P, big sell-off into the close. Well, yeah, it's sort of into the close. It was 3 hours before the close. And that's the Fed Reserve saying the same sort of thing. They're more cautious on growth. It's not going to be as quick a recovery as what they expect. But they're also touting that the government has to do more in the terms of stimulus because jobs are going to disappear. There's a lot of people that are not going to come back with a job, even if everything opens up. And now that there's that fear, and you go and read the news headlines, now they're all talking up another spike in COVID-19. So if you're watching the news too much, they're going to pump that news headline. And if that's going to keep getting pumped out to buys when you're sitting on some nice healthy gains, don't be surprised if we start getting that fear driving the market lower again. So keep an eye on the news too, because they love to beat up a story as much as anything. So it gives them money. That's how they get readers to generate that fear. And if it's time where the market's looking heavy, getting extended, and we can't get up to these previous highs, and then they start beating that COVID-19 again, anything, and the headlines will be a spike in cases where there might be 10 extra people. So just keep an eye on that and see if this market can lose a bit of ground. But at the moment, that expansion high, a bit of a chop might take out a bit of heat of this move, maybe retest these lows and go again. S&P is not telling us much. It seems to be consolidating these highs, but the longer they stay up here, the more likely it's going up. And the same with the Dow. Same sort of action. We don't need to look at that too much. XJO, ASX, it's chopping around here. It's sort of trying to hold this longer term average after this big flush out. So it'd be interesting to just see what it's going to do, whether we have a bit of a pullback and then go. It's still that average is sideways at the moment. So it's sort of that big flush out, got a bit ahead of itself, found some support, found some buying, lifted again. So it's taken out this key level around 58.75. Maybe we have to push. So have a bit of a pullback just to flush out some of these guys before we reset and go again. Okay, so at the moment, the market's sort of sideways. It's been capped at these highs around just under 6,000 with some minor support around 59.27. So it's not key support, it's starting to edge higher. But if we, longer term, we sort of hold in here and keep chopping around, and you can see these high lows starting to edge into the market, then expect some sort of expansion higher. Okay, because the market, I mean, overall, the bulls are still in play. They might be just taking a breather to see what happens. But if you start to see support coming in higher levels than this this little low in here, then yeah, that market's going to head higher, probably test back up to these highs at 61.70 or so or above. That was that. Let's get over to the currencies. I'll take a look at the US dollar. Oh, sorry, I'll do that in a second. I'll skip that. We'll get to gold. Now, gold is that move down there. It was US dollar rallying. So there's US dollar rallying there. We don't really, US dollar gold, gold is not really based around safe haven at the moment. It's more about all US dollar based. So if the US dollar is going to head south, it's going to provide some sort of support for gold. But if US dollar is going to rally as a bit of a safe haven bid, even though, traditionally gold is a safe haven, it's not acting that way because the US dollar could really, bite hard and really spike up, and it's going to put pressure on the on gold prices. So this move down here is when gold US dollar was popping higher, which we'll show you in a minute. And then obviously the US dollar turned in the US session and gave up some of these losses. Sorry, gave up some of the gains, and that's why you saw the bounce in gold. Now, we're still hovering around this level at 1731. So longer term, and if you squish that up a bit, you're finding a low here, flash back up to the highs, higher low put in place around, what's that, 1700 or so, another higher low potentially put in place. So there's a case at the moment for a bust through that high, and it's going to take out, you would expect to at least trade to 1740 or potentially through, but that's a key resistance zone at the moment, and even a bit higher up to 1750 thereabouts. So there's a few, gold has got a few levels on the upside to get through, as well as a few levels on the downside to get through to prove itself either way. It's looking heavy here, or what was looking heavy here. The way it bounced back leads you to believe that just be careful of going short, because it can turn. When we did have a short, no, we had a long one. We've had both. We had a short, made some money. I think it was down here before we got stopped out, and then we had a long one which didn't go anywhere just before these spikes lower. Okay, so we'll keep an eye on gold. I mean, I'm not keen on anything at the moment. That's really sideways more than anything else. You can see it's been sideways since 15th of June. MA is going, that says, no, we want to see a pop up, a pull back to the MAs, so the MAs lift longer term, and see if we can get off a higher low or reverse. Start to roll over, pull back to the MAs, and see if we can get a lower high that's going to pressure price right through 1700 and potentially down to these lows. Gold, let's take a quick look at crude oil. Now, crude is contracting. You've got these key sort of resistance zone, or that sloping resistance we're looking at, lower highs holding, but also you've got this high lows holding in place. You had big flush out down to 34, that held, it rallied back up, and we're holding these inside high lows as well. So what you're getting is that point of agreement between buyers and sellers that it's going to resolve itself up or down, obviously. I mean, they don't just sit there and go sideways from there on in. You're going to get a spike up, and you're going to get a squeeze of the sellers or a squeeze of the buyers. Okay, so a squeeze of the buyers would lead to a move down, potentially test these, maybe this inside level back here around 36 or even lower. But I would suggest that's going to be a major sell-off in equities. If that happens, it's going to be that fear of demand slipping because equity, shutdowns, economic problems, all that sort of stuff. So I am leaning towards the upside at this stage, and especially the way that's squeezed in. So just be looking at this kind of level. If I would expect this to hold, these high lows to hold. So look for a bit of a squeeze up through 38. Potentially you've got to trade up to 38.50. It's not going to be much in it, but if you happen to get on the right side and it does squeeze a lot higher, then great. Okay, that's crude. We'll get over to the currencies. US dollar is what we're looking at this stage. So this is the kind of action I'm looking for. You got the longer term is up, keeps pulling back to the MAs, bouncing, pulls back, potentially back to the MAs here. If we can get a higher low come into play, I'd expect that US dollar to push up to the highs, potentially right up to here to 97.40 before potentially find some sellers again to push it lower. we could get a bit of a chop during the sessions, what we got yesterday during our session, right up until about 12:30. So we were looking for this move lower before a pop up, banging off the MAs, but I mean, this happened now after our, so it's just around 5:30. It started to rally, so it rallied sort of just off the cuff, which you would have caught a lot of shorts off guard. And the same when you look at the euro, euro did the opposite. So euro is going up, bang, straight back down again. So we'll have a look at that in just a second. So this is kind of what I'm looking for, and it's starting to creep up. The US dollar starting to creep up now. So if we sort of get a pop up, a pullback, and the pullback holds above this level at 97.05, then look for some, a push up to 97.33, which would pressure the currency. So we'll look at the euro. You can see what we just had up before. Euro is doing the opposite, looking to potentially roll over. So with this one here, what I'd ideally like to see, we've got the close below the moving average. If we can sort of stick that and we've got the first pullback, which holds, then look for a move down potentially through 112.10 or below. Gives you about 40 pips, even if you just go and test that low at 112.08. It gives you 30 or 40 pips, and you're just trying to get as minimum risk as you can. But it looks like that's going to hold a key lower high, lower high, lower high. The trend is down. Everything's coming into play. You've got a key resistant, a support zone. Well, not key, but fairly major. It's coming under fire, and it's not looking too healthy. And then on top of that, you've got these highs. This lower high coming into play, which failed. So when you get this sort of thing, pull back, flush out the highs, and then fail, that's a sign of lower levels. And then you've got, okay, push all the way down, took out this low, pop back up. If that was strong and this sort of inside level was starting to hold and they were just flushing that out, it should have been all the way back up to these highs. Instead, we've got this lower high in play, bounce back up, flushed it out just like we did up here, and then roll over. So to me, if you're extending that out, looking from there to there, if we can just get that, move that down, we could be looking down to around 111.40, thereabouts. Could a big flush down to that level. Okay, so we'll keep an eye on that. Aussie, you can see starting to break down also. Lower highs in play. You can see these high up here. So the currency markets will do a lot. They'll flush and hold. So trend is up. You saw this pullback here, straight through the MAs, goes back, flushes out the highs, and then drops like a stone. So keep an eye on that sort of price action if we can. Market is, you've got this rising support starting to get broken, lower high off 69.17. If we start to take out some of these lows at around 68.50, 56, 55, another 20 bips, expect that move down to 67.99 or 6800. So that's on the cards. And again, that's playing into that US dollar weak strength we're seeing, which is starting, it looks like it's starting to play out now. Yen rolling over, safe haven bid into the yen. If we get the equities roll over, expect that safe haven bid to put the pressure on the US dollar. Sorry, not the US dollar, but the US yen. US dollar can rally, but if the yen rallies more, you've got that currency pair heading south. Just want to touch on Bitcoin. We're seeing a bit of weakness into here. Now, that seems to be coinciding with some weakness in the equity markets now. We've got a big offer zone through here on Bitcoin. Okay, and we saw that react to a bit of a spike, a flush higher, just to flush out some of these buyers, and then bang, slam down, back through the MAs. If we can hold a lower high in here, expect it to move down. You could be tested back down to about 9,000 on Bitcoin. It just, as long as it, I mean, this is a key, sort of not a key high low, but it has held this level with a bit of a flush. So just keep an eye on that. I mean, we could roll over and then squeeze back up again. So either way, there's going to be some movement, you'd expect. If we look at Ethereum, the same sort of scenario. You've got this level holding here, a bit of a flush lower. If we can hold a lower high in here, look for that rollover. And Ripple was one that, we're talking about that not looking too bad, and we're expecting that flush high, which we got, but it didn't sustain. And then you've got this move lower. So now we're working the other side. At the moment, it is very choppy, and the cryptos can get very choppy. They whip up and whip back down again. So just be careful. You've got to know exactly where your risk is. All right, guys. Yep. So the US dollar index is this one here. DXY is the US dollar index. So if you get on TradingView, you can look at it through there, or you just want that US dollar index to get an idea of what how the currencies could move with regards to the US dollar. Obviously, the US dollar is, I think, the key at the moment, and we're going to keep our eye on that. All right, guys, that's about it. We got through most of what I wanted to get through. Let's just look at where our market's opening. Oh, look at that big flush lower. Fancy that. That was, because the Dow's actually pressed lower. Dow potentially looking to hold this level and rally back up again, so just be wary. All right, guys, thank you very much for joining me. We'll be back on tomorrow at the same time, and we'll be going through just the major market moves to see how we set up for the day. It'd be fantastic if you enjoy what you see, leave us a like or help us spread the word. All right, guys, we'll speak to you again tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye.